Hello and welcome to the November edition of Coffee with the Pastors. I'm Pastor Daniel Hanson, and I'm joined by the other wonderful Pastor Dans, Pastor Dan Gerrietts and Pastor Dan Dahl here at Trinity Lutheran. We invite you to grab a cup of your favorite beverage and join us for a conversation as we discuss what's going on in the life and ministry of Trinity Lutheran Church here in
Do you have to take a drink after you hold the cup up? Is that a rule?
I think so. I think that's
yeah. Okay.
You want to make sure that there's actually something in there and that these aren't empty cups that all along we just there is actually liquid in here. So that's, we had a meeting in the break room beforehand to make sure that everyone was taken care of. So we are ready to go, and we hope you're ready to go as well. So. Well, I thought we could start off our conversation about something that was really fun here at Trinity this past month, the Scandinavian Bazaar. That was an experience. And for me, it was the first time experiencing a Scandinavian Bazaar. And I know last month we talked a little bit about that with you, Pastor Dahl, that you'd experienced it a long time ago when you were growing up here at Trinity. But I thought we could maybe talk about our impressions of the Bazaar and how it went a couple weeks ago. So maybe I'll turn it over to you, Pastor Dahl. What did you think after coming back to Trinity after all these years? What was it like to see the Bazaar again?
Oh, it was wonderful. I was extremely joyful Wednesday and Thursday, and it was just packed with all kinds of people. The volunteers outnumber the participants, I think. There were so many, especially leading up to the prayer, at the end, which is very special. Everybody gathers in a circle and prays and sings a doxology. Wonderful. And it was great being in the spot of welcoming greeter, as you all were too, just kind of going in and out amongst the volunteers and people. And I was able to see people I hadn't seen for a while and also meet new people. And there were a couple times where a man came from Albert Lee, really interested in having a meal. And I heard that was getting tight. So before I said they're available, I walked over to the table and there were 3 tickets left. And so there is a meal. He came all the way from Albert Lee for that. And he was overjoyed. I think so much so that the snow melted in Norway, from his exuberance. But then there was another member that came in early Thursday, but it wasn't so early. It was about 10 o'clock or so, wanting lefse. So I went over to where they store in the lefse, and there were 3 Ziploc bags left. So, and there were people gathered. So I kind of, we asked that one Ziploc bag be set aside while that person could make their way through the crowds to get there. And it brought joy to that person's face. And it was just incredible. And I love just being here with all that joy. And even leading up to the Bazaar, all the preparations being done and just strategically showing up Monday mornings and leaving the kitchen with lefse and sugar and butter rolled up, and which was always great, and a krummkake. And then later on, almond bars. Another group came in to make almond bars for coffee fellowship. So it's a delight. For the preparations and through the Bazaar, felt very just at home, with everybody. It was great.
Awesome. I have to say I was overwhelmed in a good way with all the energy that was in the building that week. I mean, there was a lot of people coming. Some people I recognized from the church, but then lots of other community folks, which I thought was really cool. As I saw the preparations happening, I had 2 questions in my mind. The first question was if we could add up all the volunteer hours that people had put into the Bazaar. I'm really curious what that number would be, because even to see the group that gathered for the prayer who happened to still be there at 2 o'clock, just to see that group alone and know that they had been there most of today. I mean, that already is a big number of volunteer hours, which just has to pale in comparison to all the work people put into making lefse, bringing baked goods, making crafts, doing all those things. The other question I wanted to know is how many calories were sold that day. And I don't know if that number is knowable as well either, but everything I tried to sample some different things and just phenomenal food. The fellowship halls were full for the different meals, and it was just fun to see the church alive on that day. Fun to see people coming together in mission. And yeah, I was tired, and I just kind of stood at the door and said hi to people. I can't imagine how everybody else was doing. I confess I went home and took a short nap to recuperate. And that was me just greeting folks and saying hi. So just really neat to see all the volunteer work and to see the church alive with folks.
Yeah, it was a good day. I think we don't have any numbers. I know that's often a tradition at Trinity, like, what was the dollar amount that was raised for mission, and some of the other measurables, the meal. We don't have any of that stuff yet finalized, but I think it was a really good day. We ran, as you, Dan Dahl, mentioned, we ran out of lunch tickets, which I don't know if that's happened in the last 12 or 13 years. I don't think so. And that was in part, I think, because we had big numbers on Thursday on the day of the Bazaar again, but we also have growing numbers on Wednesday night. I think there were well over 100 meatball dinners that were carried out on Wednesday night, which continues to grow, which is going to be a challenge, I think, in some ways, but also really a blessing as more and more people engage and want to find out what this Scandinavian Bazaar is all about. But yeah, I would echo what both of you said about the numbers of people involved in running this and in producing all of the goods that get sold. It's a remarkable volunteer effort that goes on for months and months and months before the event ever happens. And yeah, probably well over 100, maybe 150 volunteers it takes to do it, and hundreds of folks that came through our building in a very short amount of time. So good day overall. And I'm glad that yeah, it's nice that you both had a chance to be a part of that too, for the first time in a while, or for the first time ever. So grateful for your presence here too.
There was something really magical that happened on Wednesday and Thursday. We had a cart outside the office, and it said, "Leave baked goods here." Every time I'd walk by that cart, there would be more baked goods on top of it. And the people kept showing up on Thursday, and that cart would be full again. I will note that sign that says "baked goods left here" is now outside my office. And so just as a throw out there, no, but it was fun to see folks bringing stuff in, and we had to empty that cart a lot for the bake sale, which is pretty cool to see. So
yeah, it's cool, very cool.
Well, some other updates on some things going on here at Trinity. This past summer, Trinity approved putting in a Columbarium outside of the sanctuary wall. And I think, Pastor Dan, you have a few updates on that process, because I know some people have been curious about where is that project? Where are things at right now as we're approaching winter and Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I just wanted to make mention, I know for some folks, they've been eagerly watching for that to appear on the south lawn there where it was approved to go in. The order has been placed for the Columbarium itself, the actual set of niches, and we're expecting those to arrive kind of in the late spring, early summer is, I think, the timeline on that. We have to get some footings poured before that, and we're hoping to get that done before the ground freezes. If you've been around the building, you may have noticed there's some tarps laid down just outside of the south wall of the sanctuary, and that's in an effort to prevent the ground from freezing with the temperatures this weekend. I don't know how that's going to go, but we're going to make our best effort to get those footings poured, because then we can install the rest of the Columbarium at any time. Beyond the kind of the nuts and bolts of it, the other side is that the Columbarium Task Force, the group that helped prepare the information that was brought before the congregation, has now been working on getting the legal establishment of the Columbarium done. And that is a complicated process. I'll just say that. The group has been working really diligently, meeting, I think, at least monthly, maybe more than that, to try to get that in place. Unfortunately, because of state law, we cannot begin to sell niches until we have completed that process with the state. And we're basically, in terms of the state, we're creating a cemetery. And so there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but we're hopeful to get that wrapped up in the next couple of months, and hopefully in the first half of 2023 to be able to begin selling those niches outright. I know there are a number of people that are eager to do that, both the niches and the memorial wall. That'll be a part of that. So keep your eyes peeled on that. And if you have questions, or if you want to get your name on a list to make sure that you have that opportunity to buy a niche as soon as they become available, please call us at the church office, and we would love to know that. But that's kind of where that's at, and just wanted to make folks aware if they were curious what's been going on the last 6 months with that.
Sounds good. We'll stay tuned for more updates as they come available. Well, also, as we are moving forward in our church year, it is actually the end of the church year this upcoming Sunday, which means that Advent is just around the corner. And I saw for the first time on the news site all the different Advent calendars. They always do their annual, all the different kinds of Advent calendars that you can buy. There's a few more options than when I was a kid of all kinds of goodies, but. As the culture celebrates Advent in its own way, we in our Christian tradition celebrate Advent, awaiting in hope the birth of Christ and also Christ's return. So I thought we could maybe chat a little bit about first about what Advent means to us, because as I say, Advent has its own role in maybe American culture as a countdown to Christmas. And in some ways that's what it is, but I think there's a little more meaning to it for our Christian tradition. And then maybe we could take some time to share a lot of the different Advent opportunities for worship and programming that are going to be unique in this season. But curious to throw the question out to you both. What does Advent mean to you? Is Advent a season you get excited for, or for what reasons do you get excited for it when it comes around? What's Advent all about for you?
Well, you brought up Advent calendars, and growing up, they didn't have chocolate in them in my day, or toys or anything. It was just a window you opened, and there was a Bible verse or a saying, and there was a nativity scene on top. But in a sense, it was, growing up, it was kind of like a countdown for Christmas, but to be patient, and then Christmas coming alive as you open up the bigger window. And so I got into scripture that way. But now, of course, in a sense, it's a countdown toward Christmas, but it's not. As we enter the church year, and it's fresh, it's alive. There's a new book that we enter into even this year in the gospel, and it's all exciting as we go right after Thanksgiving. It's a quick transition, but it's a time where we do celebrate the infant Jesus on Christmas, but Advent's a time where we celebrate Jesus alive and well, and very adultish, and and present in our lives as our shepherd, giving us those gifts of peace, love, hope, and joy, and through word and sacrament, the Lord comes alive and all that. But at the same time, we look to the future as the Lord comes again, and so the world is not going to always be at war. We are going to have the lion next to the lamb without the lamb becoming breakfast, and that's all good. And it's a time where when I look back to the first time I really preached in Advent was at Trinity in 75. I came down from seminary, just, and it was an opportunity to preach on an Advent Wednesday night. So but Advent's a great time. I enjoy Advent. I really do, with all the activities and without getting too busybody.
How about you, Pastor Dan? What are your favorite parts about Advent, or what does that season mean to you?
I think of a couple things right away. I think one, here at Trinity, one of my favorite things about Advent is we bring out the decorations and the blue paraments. I love the blue paraments here at Trinity. The wall hangings behind the altar have the skyline of Bethlehem put into them, and just the vibrancy of the blue with the star and the gold. And I don't know why, I just really I love all of our paraments, but that one is one of my favorites. And the work that Heather Hermanson and that crew does to decorate the building is really stunning, and particularly in our new space, just really fun. So I always look forward to that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what it means, I've always thought Advent is such a funny but also really helpful season. It's funny because it cuts so much against our culture, which is so excited always to celebrate Christmas as soon as Thanksgiving is done, or maybe even Halloween is done, depending on the person. And yet there is this aspect of Advent that is meant to be about waiting, because Advent celebrates the coming of Christ. And kind of as Pastor Dahl said, the other funny part about Advent is that it really thinks dually about two different comings. It on the one hand thinks about the coming of Christ at Christmas, which we know already happened in the story, as the story says, in Bethlehem in a manger. But also there's that other piece of the coming of Christ again, and that is something that Advent focuses on. And that's a piece that we often don't always pick up on, that knowing that Christ has already come, lived among us, died, rose again. Part of what Advent means is that we live in expectation that Christ will return and will, as you said, make the lion and the lamb lie down together and bring the full restoration of creation. So that's funny, and it's a little tricky, and yet it also has incredibly deep meaning, I think, as people we're always yearning and waiting for something, and it's good to ponder that and to sit with that a little bit during this season, that especially can feel so hurried and so full of expectations and so full of emotion for so many of us. I think Christmas time is one of those times. December is one of those times that it's just so full of emotions, nostalgia and joy and memories, but also some really heavy stuff for a lot of us. We think more about the loss of family members during this season. We think about the darkness as our days get shorter and this cold weather in this part of the country comes, so yeah, I think for all that reason, there's some value in kind of reflecting on who God is in our lives, in the way that we continue to wait on God to come, but also celebrate how God is with us even now.
Very
What
cool.
about for you? What would you say?
I love Advent. I don't know if it's my favorite season. In confirmation, I'll say this is my favorite Bible verse every week. So whenever I say favorite, it's take it with a grain of salt. But for Advent, I think it's such a complicated season, and I like that. Like, because on the one hand, like there is this like joy of Christmas is coming. Like I'm all about getting the Christmas decorations out early, right? I love that. I love the Christmas tree and all those things. But there's in Advent, I think there's a permission to long for a world that is as it is, but could be different. And so I think Advent gives us some permission and some space to long for that world to come, to long for that world without war, without pain, without suffering, this world that Christ restores to be our experience. And so there's some particular Advent music. I think of O Come, Emmanuel as one of the hymns that really helps me connect to that longing. Some Taizé music, Wait for the Lord, whose day is near. Like I always think about that as an Advent song. And I find myself being in Advent a lot throughout the year. But in Advent, I get to celebrate with everybody else. And so for me, it's a really meaningful time. And I think especially the ritual of lighting the candles on the Advent wreath is a really important ritual to learn patience, right? I want Christmas now, right? I want the joy now, and sometimes the joy is to come. And so, looking each week and seeing that those candles are one by one slowly being lit, and then waiting for Christmas Day, where we especially celebrate that day and the Christ candle being lit, has always been a really meaningful ritual for me. But I look forward to it each and every year. I like to check in at children's sermon, like how close are we? Oh, we're not there yet. All right, but it's coming. So I'm looking forward to doing that again here. To continue to look up and be reminded that Christ is our light, a light that shines in the darkness, and that Christ indeed accompanies us.
I think I once asked a seminary professor, a liturgics professor, what's the real meaning of the Advent wreath? And they said, it counts down the Sundays to Christmas. But and I was like, oh, I just always assumed there was some, most liturgical kind of things had these deep-seated historical reading. Like, no, it's just pretty much just to count down the Sunday.
We're counting it down. We're getting closer, 1 week at a time. But I do think there's a really unique genre of Advent music in hymnody and also in contemporary music. If you're listening to my Spotify playlist right now, it's some Advent contemporary tunes where there's some really interesting things out there. But that leads kind of into a nice segue for what our preaching series is going to be in Advent, as we're going to be exploring different Advent hymns and their themes. So maybe Pastor Dan, you could share a little bit about what's coming for our Advent preaching series.
Yeah, so we're going to focus on the music this Advent. That series and Advent go quickly, right? Because we have 4 weekends. That's it. And then we're there. And so this year we're going to focus on some of the music and how the music of Advent really helps us think about these things we've just been talking about expectation and hope and waiting and celebration. And so we're going to look at 4 different Advent songs. Some of them are well-known hymns. Some of them are fairly new. And each weekend in worship, that'll be kind of the center of our reflection in the message. So our first week, this weekend is O Come, O Come. I'm sorry, next weekend. Next weekend is O Come, Emmanuel is our song. And then we're going to do Prepare the Royal Highway, which I know has been, at least in the Lutheran tradition, a long time. The third week, we're going to do one that's quite a bit newer than the other ones, called Unexpected and Mysterious. And it's really a song about the incarnation and the mystery and the power of what it means that God becomes flesh. And then the last week, we're going to do Joy to the World, which many people will, I'm sure, respond by saying, that's not an Advent hymn. That's a Christmas hymn. And I don't think that's wrong necessarily. I think it is a Christmas hymn. We sing it on Christmas Eve almost every year, Christmas Day. But it is actually listed in our hymnal, in our latest hymnal, as an Advent hymn. And when you look at the text of it, it's kind of interesting. The verb tenses in it are expecting. They're futuristic, or present. So we're going to think about that from in terms of an Advent hymn too for this series. But so we'll talk about them, we'll preach about them, and then we're going to sing all of those too in worship at all of the services through Advent, with the exception of a couple special services that are going on during that season. You want me to talk a little bit about that too?
Yeah, maybe we can jump into some of the other things that are going on during Advent, some really unique worship opportunities and other programs going on. So
Yeah.
what's happening?
Yeah, so we have a number of other things that are happening during the season of Advent. Our Wednesday Night Alive programming will become very simple during these Wednesdays of Advent, these Wednesdays in, beginning November 30th, we're going to do our meal like normal, and then we'll have Holy Evening Prayer, about a 15-minute service of music and light and prayer. And that'll be on November 30th, December 14th, and 21st in the sanctuary at 6:30. On that one Wednesday that I didn't mention, December 7th, we're actually going to have the Nyack Choir here for a concert in the sanctuary. That's 6:30 p.m. on the 7th of November, of December, which is going to be a real special treat to have them singing some of their music from their holiday concert with us. Lots of other things going on. The Ladies' Christmas Tea is happening on December 8th in the afternoon. We have opportunities to celebrate some special things with the Sunday School Christmas program on December 11th. That'll be at the 10:30 service. All of our Sunday School youth will present the story of Jesus' birth with singing and all kinds of special stuff. Our musicians, our many different ensembles are going to come together to do a Christmas cantata on Saturday, December 17th at 5 p.m. So that will take the place of the 5 p.m. Service there on December 17th. And that's going to be full of handbells and choir and some really beautiful music. So encourage folks to come out for that. There's lots of other things that you can ring the bell for Salvation Army. There's opportunities to make gifts in memory of people. And as well, a very special service. We talked a little bit about the heaviness, the emotion of this series, and there's a Living Our Laments service. And Pastor Dahl, you've been working on that a little bit. You want to share a little bit about that?
Along with, of course, I'm assisting Becky, our parish nurse, and who has done this in the past, and we'll do it again. Living Our Laments to be a service on Tuesday, December 6th at 6:30, People are invited to come to the sanctuary and also to be a moment to live stream the service. We live in a hurting world where people, especially during this time of year, feelings become more intense. They kind of blow up, whether it's hurting deep inside, suffering, a loss, a time of grieving. Someone who's alone feels very alone. But it'll be a time to gather together in prayer and music and song and candlelight, and a time where we realize we have a faithful God, and our Lord hears our cries. Jesus climbs down into the pit of our darkness, hangs out with us, and it becomes a light illuminating our space, and just hangs out until it is possible to get out of that pit. But we know that Jesus goes with us wherever we are in our darkness. And this is a service where we have an opportunity to really feel the space to express the pain that's inside and understand we have our Lord who listens and is with us.
Yeah, and I love the fact that that's going to happen not only here in person, right, but we'll also
Live stream.
Be available online. So for folks that would be blessed by being here, they can do that. For those that want to catch it later in the season or in their own kind of time and space, that's a beautiful option. All of those things that we've talked about too, all of the Advent and Christmas activities, the best place to find that complete list with all their details is on our webpage. Right on the front page, there's a banner that says Advent and Christmas at Trinity. Click on that and you'll get all of those details we just talked about.
Sounds good. Good way to stay tuned. If you're like me and can't remember what day something's going to be, gotta know your place to check it out. So lots of exciting things coming around the corner. Well, as we record today, we are ending the church year. So the church year begins on Advent, and the final Sunday of the church year will be this upcoming Sunday, and we are going to be celebrating Thanksgiving on that Sunday in worship. Thanksgiving will be this upcoming Thursday, and so we're going to take some time and worship on Sunday to pause and to count our blessings, to think about the ways God has worked in our lives, to count our blessings for all the good things that are going on in our lives, and just take a moment to say thanks in the midst of that. So as we approach Thanksgiving, I know people celebrate Thanksgiving in all kinds of different ways, and I thought we could close out our conversation today maybe sharing a favorite Thanksgiving ritual, or a way that you like to celebrate Thanksgiving, where maybe that's with your family, maybe that was something you did with friends a long time ago. How do you like to celebrate Thanksgiving? What's been some special ways you've done that?
Well, it's a time where we get together with family, and so wherever we are, we try to get together with family. And I just wanted to, of course, growing up, we would get together with my dad's brother and my uncle, wherever he lived, Northeast Iowa or Wisconsin, with 5 other cousins, and we were 8. So there were a group of us running around while the turkey was being baked and basted and stuffed and all that stuff, and then enjoying the fruits of other people's labor on that day. But I wanted to just bring up one just different Thanksgiving Eve that I celebrated in Brazil. Of course, it's not a place where the pilgrims, appeared, but in the 90s, I was a pastor of the International Church. And when an American being away from home, it even makes it more special. Thanksgiving, and it's right up there with Christmas and Easter and other different events throughout the year. And many members of the consulate, American consulate, and Chamber of Commerce were members of our church. So we would always organize an ecumenical service with the American Catholic priest from the American the high school there, Father Brown. And there was Roger Bird, Episcopalian and Anglican, and then we and others. We gathered together, and the council would read during the service the message from the president. The Marine detachment of the council. The consulate would be an honor guard. Would be singing of all the favorite hymns, more singing than you can imagine. And it just became really a Thanksgiving to remember and celebrated to the Lord, and And then afterwards, we had all kinds of goodies.
Hmm.
So it's interesting how it is when you're away from the country, this country, how very special Thanksgiving is. It really becomes a sacred moment for
Hmm.
people, and a very emotional time, and a great time to give thanks.
That's right. What about for you, Daniel?
Yeah, well, I think Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays, although again, my favorite things take with a grain of salt because I have lots of favorites. But I have a lot of great memories. We'd always have pie after church. I love pie. But more than I love the pie, I remember running around with my friends, right? That there was these particular friends who were always there for that service. And so I had just very distinct memories of worship around Thanksgiving, but there was pie afterward, and there was this time of fellowship. Those same very friends, their grandma were neighbors with us in Osage, and so after the Thanksgiving meal, after everyone had digested, we would play football. And I remember some days we were in our shorts and t-shirts. Some years we were bundled up in snow pants, and we'd play football till we couldn't play anymore, and then we'd go have more pie. And life was very good. Their grandma would always make phenomenal pie. But I think about the ways in which, especially as I've gotten a little bit older, it's not so much the fun and games anymore. It's the being together with others. We would do Friendsgiving in seminary before Thanksgiving, where we get together. That's where I learned how to bake a turkey, which I was really proud of. There's some great stories if anyone wants to know about my first attempt to bake a frozen turkey. But some joy in not just having a meal, but sharing it with others, and the process of making that together, the process of sharing that together. So I always look forward to that time. It's a little less busy season for pastors, and I appreciate that as a little bit of a breather. That Christmas and Easter are pretty busy. Thanksgiving is a little more relaxed, and that's one thing I enjoy in being with my family and friends.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the neat things for me, Thanksgiving's always been about being with family too. When I was growing up, it was about being at grandma's house on either side and with my cousins, and that was great fun. And it was about food, and it was about watching football, and then sometimes, playing football. Or I remember one year, I think the first time I went pheasant hunting, I went with my dad and my cousins on the farm where my dad grew up in Western Iowa, and that was a really great memory. That happened on Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving. I can't remember which. And then now more recently, we've continued that. My family always is together, and it's often with my sisters and their families. So our kids, the cousins, are together and getting to enjoy that time. And we still watch football, and we still actually, Thanksgiving at our house these days has become all about what's on the television while the family's gathering or cooking or doing whatever. And it starts with the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and then it becomes the American Kennel Dog Show or whatever the one is that's always on Thanksgiving Day. And with the announcer from Seinfeld, I can't think of the guy's name, but and about the football games. And this year, as a Vikings fan, we're really excited. The Vikings are going to play on Thanksgiving Day, and the Vikings are continuing to win. So that's kind of going to be fun because my whole family shares that love too. So, but yeah, it's definitely about being together and being grateful, being really grateful, and thinking about the source of all of the blessings and joys in our lives. I think that is the faith connection to Thanksgiving, even though Thanksgiving itself is not a religious holiday per se. It still is one that, as people of faith, has great meaning, right? Because gratefulness is a huge part of being a person of faith. So yeah, looking forward to that very much.
Well, good deal. Well, we wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. We are excited to celebrate with you the upcoming season of Advent. But until then, we'll check out until next month, and hope to see you either on the screen or in worship too. God's blessing and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.